Welcome back. You're listening to the Wealth Guardian Show with Paul Taylor. Doug Ray and Brian Geiser are out today. Once again, if you'd like to sit down and talk with us about some of the issues we'll be talking about today, you can reach us at 1-800-515-2919. And today's a very special day. We're doing a pre-recorded call with Patrick Kelly, the author of Tax-Free Retirement. We've been giving these books away for quite a few weeks here, and I know the feedback we've gotten, Patrick, that people really enjoyed it. So we
thank you.
We are honored to have you here today. But one thing that you were talking about right before we went to break, as we were talking about the marginal tax rates and brackets, and with the amount of money that's being printed, the amount of debt that's occurring, that really the only way the government's going to be able to take care of these issues is by raising taxes. And one thing I don't think people realize without looking back, that some of the younger generation, is that we are at one of the lowest marginal tax rates we've ever been in.
That's absolutely true, and most people don't know that. Matter of fact, taxes feel pretty painful right now, and the top marginal bracket is about 35%, which is no fun for anyone to give up a third or more of their hard-earned income to the government. But what many people don't realize, Paul, is that back in the 40s and 50s, the top marginal bracket was as high as 94%. It was 94% in 1944 and 1945. Think about that. That means an individual at the time who earned more than $200,000, everything earned above that amount, they got to keep 6 cents of every dollar they earned. So even though it feels painful now, we've really got a disconnect because we've got some of the largest debt and deficits ever in our country and some of the lowest tax brackets. And if that doesn't, cause you to pause with a little concern, I don't know what does.
Well, I guess the question for everybody here who hasn't read the book, Patrick, what are our options?
Absolutely. Most people, the option that they've been told is the great, the best strategy for them. Accountants, matter of fact, my own accountant told me this. I had to show him differently. He said, Patrick, you can save some money this year on taxes if you put money into a tax-qualified plan. Well, folks, if that's you, if you're putting money into a 401k, an IRA, a SEP, a Simple, a 403b, those are good. I'm not knocking those, but I just want you to understand how they work and what is coming for you down the road. Because you will hear statements like you're going to save tax on that, but the reality, you're not saving tax, you're simply delaying tax. All you're doing is you're able to not pay tax on it currently, but then you let it grow to a much, much bigger amount. And now when you take it out down the road, you're going to have to pay tax not only on the contribution that you made that you were able to avoid tax earlier on, but also on all the gain that contribution created. So now your tax bill has gotten far worse, and that's if tax rates stay the same. But if tax rates go up, which I think most people out there are thinking the same thing we're thinking, Paul.
Yeah, I agree.
Go up. If tax rates go up, now not only have you really compounded the problem, now not only do you have to pay tax on both the gain and the contribution, but at a higher tax rate.
I want to reiterate something that you said that I think is real important for our listeners to hear. You said you're not saving on taxes, but you're delaying. When you go into a SEP or an IRA or a qualified asset that is deferring taxes, that was a great statement. You're not saving, but you're delaying the tax.
Thank you. And I couldn't state that any more strongly. I'm glad we highlighted that for people because, quite frankly, most people don't know that. They're told, hey, you can save tax, and they never spend enough time to think, but what about when I take it out? Mm-hmm. So that's one option. That's the option that they're, taught to do right now. But there is another option. And I think the best way for me to introduce this is to tell a story of my 14-year-old son, Brett. It was just a few months ago. We were driving home in the car, and, this is 4 years after my book had been published, and he looks at me after basketball practice and says, hey, Dad, what does your book say anyway? And I just had to chuckle because I thought, well, you're 14. You can read it, right? And he said, well, Dad, I'm not going to read your book. Just summarize it for me. And so I decided to summarize it. And what I said is, Brett, what my book essentially talks about is how an individual is able to earn money today and pay tax on that money today, but then put it away somewhere, let it grow to a much bigger amount, and then be able to access that money if you do it properly in the future without having to pay tax at that point. And he said, well, let me get this straight, Dad. You're telling me if I earn $1 and I have to pay 10 cents in tax, that I can put the other 90 cents away somewhere, let it grow to $10, and then be able to access that $10 without having to pay tax in the future? And I said, Brett, you said that perfectly. That's exactly right. And he said, well, Dad, who in their right mind wouldn't do that?
Yeah, wow, that's strong. That's powerful. Or should we be looking for a book from him coming out soon?
Well, sometimes, Paul, we need to get inside the mind of a 14-year-old boy and simplify. We make things so complicated as adults sometimes, but he saw it as clear as it was intended to be. And I think what we need to talk about next as we go in maybe to this last segment is what is the product and what allows an individual to be able to do that, and how is it actually done?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. We got a good 3 minutes here. Let's talk about just a couple of things. I know a lot of people have looked at municipal bonds, and Roth IRAs are a good solution also because that does grow tax deferred. But let's hit on municipal bonds before we go to break, and then we'll come back and talk about Roths, and then talk about the universal life that your book talks about. One problem with municipal bonds is they're interest rate sensitive, and now we've got to even deal with credit risk, which we have talked about over the last 4 weeks. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. One of the things I talk about when I do training with agents is with municipal bonds, there's a couple reasons that I think there's some concern. One is over time, even in the best of years, they've barely kept pace with inflation as far as a return. And the other thing is they're just not real well diversified, and that's really coming to light right now. There was an article on the front page, really, of the Wall Street Journal here just a couple weeks ago, and I'd read one a few months back that said, municipalities, which are essentially government-owned agencies, utilities usually, and other sorts of things, they are in real trouble right now, that many of them do not have enough money to pay the bills, and many of them are going to be facing default. Matter of fact, 2011 looks to be the greatest year of municipality default ever in the history of America. So while these have been good instruments in the past, I think with the state of affairs, again, back to the debt issue, it's some concern right now on municipal bonds. And I want to highlight one other thing you said, and I'm in agreement. I like the Roth IRA, and I like the Roth 401k. The only trouble with those two, and those are really the other place that someone can get a tax-free retirement, meaning they earn their money today, they pay tax on their earnings, they put money into the Roth IRA or the Roth 401k, after tax, and then when they access it later, they're able to access it without paying any tax at all. The problem with those is with the Roth 401k, those aren't available to most people that I'm talking with. That's if the company happens to offer it, but otherwise, it's not something they can typically go out and do on their own. I
agree with you. I've seen very few people being able to do a Roth 401k. Now, obviously, I've seen quite a few people with Roths, but that is a great point and something that people need to realize. And, folks, once again, we don't know what's going to be best for you, and that's why we do this radio show, is we do want to educate you, but we also want to bring you or give you the availability to come in and talk with us to talk about what is in your best interest. And that's one thing that Doug, myself, and Brian will do with you. We will sit down. We will talk about what is in your best interest, not ours. And that is something that we're proud to say. But give us a call. We are going to end this segment here and go to a break. But call us at 1-800-515-2919. If you'll sit down with us, and I'm not trying to tell you that you have to do that, but I have a lot of Patrick Kelly books. I'll be glad to give you one of those, and you'll enjoy the reading. And I'm sure we'll probably continue to give some giveaways over the next few weeks. But we'll be right back after this break. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay.